This isn't laziness. This is shutdown. And today we are going to talk about the freeze response that many high-performing women end up finding themselves in.
Welcome to the True Wellness Podcast with Dr. Z, where we explore what it takes to live with vitality, balance, and purpose. I am Dr. Z, and each week I will bring you powerful tools, inspiring stories, and expert insights to help you thrive in every area of your life. From health and wellness to mindset and navigating life's challenges, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of true well-being. Be sure to check the show notes and grab your copy of the True Wellness Checklist so you can get started on your journey right away. Now, let's get started.
So if you've ever sat on your couch at night with your phone in your hand, a to-do list in your head, knowing that things kind of have to get done and you literally cannot move. Have you found yourself there? Yeah, I have. I mean, it's not that you're lazy. It's not that you're unmotivated. It's that you are frozen. And today I want to talk about this freeze response, which I call the high functioning freeze response. It's the survival state high achievers live in for sometimes years without even realizing that that's what they're doing. And it's why your willpower isn't actually the issue. Your nervous system is. So most people understand fight or flight, right? Adrenaline, anxiety, overdrive, all of that. But there's a third branch that almost no one explains correctly, and that's freeze. And freeze is not a relaxation. Freeze is not calm. Freeze is actually the nervous system shutting down under pressure. So biologically, the freeze happens when our sympathetic motivation runs way too low, right? When that activation is on high alert, when the body determines escape isn't possible, it freezes. When that dorsal vagal system actually pulls the brake. And so what happens is our heart rate might drop, our energy might collapse, our motivation seems to just disappear. And of course, then our executive functioning, right? Our higher level thinking, it starts to go offline. And this is not like a psychological weakness. It's actually a survival reflex. Your body was designed to do this. Okay. So in high performers, it doesn't look like you're collapsing on the floor. Instead, it looks more like you're crushing it at work and crashing when you get home. Or you're over functioning all day long, but then you're just like numbing yourself at night, maybe with your phone. It looks like brain fog in meetings or procrastinating things that, procrastination that feels physical, right? Or doom scrolling that you can't stop or interrupt. We're using the doom scrolling to relax when really we're not. We're actually using it to freeze. It could also show up as chronic fatigue with normal labs. So this is what functional freeze is. And here's where it gets nuanced. High functioning anxiety, that is like wired, tense, controlling. The high functioning freeze, that is like flat, heavy, foggy, detached. And both can actually live within the same person. In fact, the cycle can look a little bit like this, like you push real hard, you override your body's signals, right? You're not resting when your body's telling you to rest. Your cortisol stays elevated and you continue to burn fuel. But your system then pulls down the emergency brake, and that brake is the freeze. And here's what driven women are rarely told, right? The more responsible you are, the more disciplined you are, the more likely you're actually to override those early warning signs. So your body, it has to start getting louder and louder. And this is why I tell a lot of the clients that we work with, like freeze is not failure. It's more like conservation mode. So imagine that you're driving a high performance, I don't know, a Tesla, right? Incredible engine, responsive, it's built for output. Now imagine someone pulls the emergency brake halfway up. Well, the car might still move, but it drags, overheats, it consumes more energy than is necessary. And that's the high functioning freeze. You're still producing, you're still succeeding, you're still showing up, but something is dragging internally. And most high achievers, they compensate with horsepower, right? You just like dive right in and get going. More caffeine, more willpower, more pushing until one day what happens? The engine overheats. So now there's burnout, there's hormonal chaos throughout the body, there's chronic fatigue. And it's not the brake that was the problem. It was the unconscious override that kept it going that was. So freeze is actually it's a protective braking system. And when it stays engaged for too long, then it can become a limitation. So when someone in freeze tries to do something like meditation, breathwork apps, or productivity hacks, or more supplements, or positive thinking, oftentimes it will fail. Why? Because freeze is not a mindset issue. It's actually a safety issue. And it's fundamental to your body's functioning. What the nervous system does when it does not perceive safety. And it will not restore your energy. You can't think your way out of a freeze. You must signal safety to your body first. The body needs to feel safe. And longevity is not about hacks, okay? It's actually about what we call coherence. It's about that cell to cell communication. It's about that nervous system rhythm. It's about hormonal stability. And when the system feels safe, the body actually reallocates energy toward healing. When it feels unsafe, then it actually begins to conserve. So let's ground this in science. Okay. So there is Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory explains what the nervous system, what that vagus nerve does in the nervous system. It has two branches. Okay. So you've got the ventral vagal, which is about safety. It's about connection. It's about regulation. And you have the dorsal vagal, which is shutdown, immobilization, conservation. And chronic stress doesn't stay in fight or flight forever. Eventually, it drops into the dorsal vagal dominance. Okay, that's your shutdown. And research shows that when we have chronic stress ongoingly, it leads to reduced heart rate variability. Our cortisol curves get flattened. We have impaired prefrontal cortex activation. We get increased inflammatory cytokines in our body. So aches, pains, inflammation. So, here's a translation. It's like your executive brain, it goes offline when you're under sustained stress. And that's why you know what to do, but you can't do it. It's not a character flaw, you guys. It's actually physiology. So let's decode what you're judging yourself for, right? So doom scrolling, for example, that's dorsal vagal numbing attempt, numbing that vagal symptom. Procrastination, that is executive function suppressed. It can't do what it needs to do. Or brain fog, that's that prefrontal cortex energy just like completely diverted to other places. Or evening exhaustion, for those of you who like get home from work and you just crash. It's a rebound collapse. Sugar or wine cravings, that is usually an attempt to regulate the body. So none of this is actually happening because we're lazy. It's actually happening because it's an adaptive response from our physiology. So your body is not sabotaging you. It's actually protecting you. Imagine that. I always say everything happens for a reason. So when our body starts doing something that we're not too happy with, we've got to take a look at why. And isn't it amazing that our body is always protecting us? But the truth is, When that protection, when it's chronic, when it's all the time, it can become a limitation. So when we're in freeze, when we're in that freeze state, like I said before, our cortisol rhythm begins to flatten. Our thyroid conversion, that begins to slow down. Okay. Our progesterone drops. And now you see all the hormones are coming into play. Our blood sugar becomes destabilized. Our inflammation in our body increases. Our mitochondria that are supposed to have us, going and going and going, they reduce their output. So you might go to the doctor, they might do labs and they say, hey, your labs, they're in range. But because freeze is functional before it's pathological, in other words, it's going to show up in your day to day before it ever shows up in your blood work. You're told by the doctor, like, hey, you're fine, but you're not fine. You're dysregulated. And this is a big thing, you guys, that I think people are beginning to work up to. So think of your body like a phone battery. So acute stress drains the battery. Chronic stress shrinks the battery capacity, right? That's why the phone batteries eventually they go. So now you're operating at 52% and you're calling it normal. So labs, what they measure is the catastrophic failure. They don't measure like the diminished cellular output, for example. So there are studies that show that stress actually reduces your mitochondrial efficiency. So you got within your mitochondria, you got your ATP doing all their production. But when we've got that chronic consistent stress, that means that there's less ATP for energy. Okay. It means there's less ATP for hormone production, detoxification, brain clarity, cognition, muscle repair. So if you're having workouts and you're feeling more, like soreness afterwards. So freeze is energy rationing is what it is. And your cells, they're conserving fuel. So when high functioning freeze, it usually starts early, right? The child who became responsible too young or learned emotional needs were inconvenient, right? Their needs were not important, or they had to perform for approval or become the strong one. Which one of these do you relate to? In these cases, it's like connection becomes performance and safety becomes competence. So fast forward, like now you're an adult and you push until you collapse, or you perform until you just like need to numb yourself, or you completely overfunction until you shut down. And really, I mean, this is adaptive brilliance. But what protected you then actually begins to limit you now, because that freeze is really an outdated protection. This is why a lot of work that we do and in our retreats and our workshops and stuff, we have to address what happened with our younger selves because they are technically still running the show. So if freeze is a safety problem, the solution then begins by feeling safe. So do this with me. I just want you to kind of give a physiological sigh, right? Like inhale through your nose. Number 2, short inhale at the top, like another one. And then a long, slow exhale through your mouth. Okay, let's do that 3 times. Ready? Inhale through your nose. Another short inhale at the top. And then a long, slow exhale through your mouth, right? Again, try it again. Inhale. Again, inhale. This directly activates your parasympathetic tone. And you can do this in different ways. You can do it by humming. You can put your hand on your sternum, give gentle pressure and just kind of look around and find some neutral objects. Like I see the laugh sign over here. and I see a plant over there, like just look around very neutrally at what's in your space and your environment, bringing yourself back into the present. And when we do these things, they shift us from the internal threat of scanning everything externally. And what happens is when we're not kind of overloaded, the freeze loosens and then the body can actually perceive that safety. So, freeze is not only nervous system dysregulation, it's actually cellular incoherence, right? So, chronic stress, it disrupts, like I said before, the mitochondrial signaling, the hormonal rhythms, the inflammatory really regulation in your body. It disrupts even your detoxification pathways. So, your system, it has to stop prioritizing healing or expansion. And it has to just focus on that survival. So when we talk about coherent longevity in my practice, it really means that nervous system rhythm is restored, right? It means that that cortisol curve is protected. It means your blood sugar is stabilized, your sleep is anchored, your cellular signaling is strengthened, and you don't have to hustle harder. You restore the internal communication system. So there's three phases in order for you to exit out of this free state. Okay. So phase number one is stabilization. This is how you do it, you guys. This is timing your sleep, like going to bed at the same time every night, waking up at the same time every morning. It's protein at breakfast. It's making sure that your blood sugar stays stable throughout the day. So the candy, the coffee, all of that stuff, that's going to make things worse, not better. Morning sunlight, another one. That's all part of phase one. So that's stabilization. Phase two is regulation. That's the breath work. That's the somatic release. Maybe you cross your arms over and tap your shoulders or tap your head. That's the working on your heart rate variability, right? Taking control of your heart rate. So stabilization is one, regulation is two. And then number three, that's where the expansion actually comes in. So we can't, without stabilization, okay, without regulation, we can't think about expansion. We can't think about like working out. We can't think about like cold plunges, right? Or challenging our brains. We've got to focus on expanding and to do those things, but we can't unless we've solved those other two phases. So in expansion, that's where we're bringing in the strength training. That's where we're bringing in maybe the cold exposure. I had a call with a client this morning where she's talking about how wonderful it is to take that cold shower. And she doesn't like dip herself in the cold shower in a way that triggers the body into a crazy response. But she, lowers and lowers and lowers the heat steadily so that her body eases into it without coming into this hyper state. And that's really the smart way to do it, especially for women who are in their perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal years, because you don't want to shock your body, especially if you're already stressed out. And the other piece of expansion too is hormone recalibration. So what'll happen is, if you're listening to this, you're probably a high performer. So most high performers are like, quick, let me jump in and do the expansion first. So they're strength training and they're cold plunging and they're, challenging their minds and adding to their to-do list. But that fails. It fails because you need to have capacity before you can then bring in intensity. And if we do that, we're not bringing ourselves into the safety zone. So in order for us to actually do that, we've got to do the first two steps, right? We've got to stabilize, which is phase number one. We've got to regulate, which is phase number two. And this is how you gently remove that break safely in a way that actually feels good. I mean, think about it. Why are nervous system resets trending? And I'm going to give you guys in the show notes, you guys, I will give you a nervous system reset that you can participate with. And so all you have to do is send us a message or comment wherever you're watching this, and we will get you activated for that nervous system reset. You just message us, nervous system reset, and we'll get you all hooked up where you will get like one activity that you can do every single day. Just a little reminder, a little micro practice, not another huge thing added to do your to-do list, but that little reminder can continue to shift you out of that free state and back into that space of safety. But you'll see, you guys, that these resets, they're trending everywhere because people are tired of productivity advice. And what they really want is that biological repair. So when someone is in freeze, right, the executive function is compromised. They don't need more inspiration. What they need is rhythm. And predictability actually builds safety. And safety then builds coherence. And coherence, right? When this is all beautiful and happening nicely, coherence then restores our energy. And that's how we get back to feeling good. So if you are high functioning and you're exhausted, if you perform all day and collapse at night, if your labs are normal, but your body's not, stop blaming discipline. You're likely in this functional freeze response. And so the solution is not more force. Forcing yourself isn't going to get you to where you want to be. It is about restoring safety, restoring rhythm, restoring coherence. So start tonight. Start with that physiological sigh that we talked about. Turn off your phones 20 minutes before bed. No more doom scrolling. Get consistent sleep. The extra 10 minutes scrolling to see something else that happened on social media is way, 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 way less important than the power of getting that extra 10 minutes sleep. So build that safety first. And when you do that, then your energy follows. So that's why people really, when they begin to actually focus on their nervous system, their energy returns. You were never lazy. What your body was doing was protecting itself. And protection, it becomes power, but it becomes power when you actually understand it. So go ahead, step into that space of safety and allow your body to get what it needs and get yourself out of that functional freeze. Until next time.
This is Dr. Z reminding you to tune into your body, connect with what matters, and embrace your journey to true wellness. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who's ready to redefine their health. Be sure to grab a copy of the True Wellness Checklist right in the show notes. Let's keep redefining wellness and empowering change together. See you for the next episode.